writing a book author in care of a publishing company. The author had written a book of her memoirs from when she was a warden of a men's maximum security prison in California. But she never got the letter. Somebody at the publishing company opened the letter, read it, and instead sent it to an investigator who works out of Colorado and Maine. She wrote me back right away. We brainstormed together, she gave me ideas, and she attempted to get people to take my case. One of the ideas she gave me was that I should write the Innocence Project again, a not-for-profit organization in Manhattan that works to clear prisoners in cases across the country in which DNA testing can demonstrate innocence and in which no prior testing had been conducted. The problem that I encountered on my first go-around attempting to get their assistance in 1992-93 was that prior testing had been conducted. The results didn't match me, but I nonetheless had been convicted, and they had never saw a case in which that had happened. Therefore, they told me, there was nothing else they could do. Fast forwarding back to 2005, the investigator told me that with the advances in DNA testing and technology, that the prior denial was irrelevant, and so I should write them again. Now, I didn't want to do that because I thought that I would get a similar response to what I got the first time around. But having very few other options, I had no choice, and so I did so anyway. And then I forgot about it. I continued to look for other methods by which to obtain representation, none of which were successful. 6 months later, seemingly out of the blue, the Innocence Project contacted me, and they informed me that they were going to take my case. By this time, Ms. Pirro had left office, and her predecessor had been there for a mere 40 days. And they prevailed upon her, and she agreed to voluntarily allow me to have more sophisticated DNA testing. The results matched that of a man who left free while I did time for his crime, killed another victim 3.5 years later, a school teacher and mother of two. In September 20th, 2006, my conviction was overturned and I was released. I reported back to court November 2nd, 2006, at which point all the charges against me were dismissed on the grounds of actual innocence, and my innocence was acknowledged by the prosecutor and the judge, although neither of them were their counterparts who originally had anything to do with my initial wrongful conviction. At that point, I was completely free to somehow start my life over again with very few possessions beyond the clothes that I had on. I would like to share with you a little bit about my life post-exoneration. The world is much different now than what it was when I was originally convicted. To give some concrete examples, we didn't have cell phones, internet, GPS, the sophisticated methods of banking that we use. As I walked down cities and towns that I once knew, although some of the buildings and houses and businesses remain the same, yet others have disappeared and have been replaced with newer things. The people who I once knew, who occupied those cities and towns, have long since moved away. And so I get this eerie feeling that comes over me often, that I'm still in some sort of alternative parallel universe. When I visit with members of my extended family, it's an awkward and uncomfortable thing, because even though I know who they are intellectually, having memories of them from when I was younger, yet when you spend large amounts of time away from them, you grow apart. And so there's a communication gap, and it's hard to relate and understand them, as I'm sure it's hard for them to relate to and understand me. I received a scholarship from Mercy College, and I completed the bachelor's, and as Helen mentioned earlier, I just completed the coursework for a master's degree. I've done a lot of work as an advocate individually. I've spoken throughout the country, and I was a columnist for 5 years for a weekly newspaper, and I lobbied elected officials in New York and Connecticut, and I weighed in when legislation was considered on lawful conviction prevention measures, as well as issues around capital punishment, with the obvious risk of executing an innocent person being one of the main issues there. I want to share a little bit about my foundation beyond what's already been shared with you. I formed the foundation for a few reasons.